So good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me on this time savvy workshop tonight. I have been so excited to teach this all day because it's literally one of my favorite subjects to talk about. So the challenge I'm going to have is to make sure that I don't talk too much and give you too much information, which just because the whole point of coming on this here tonight is so that you can actually really work out what's going to work for you in your life. I'm going to just tell you what it is that I do with my day-to-day systems. But I also want to caveat all of that by saying that everybody's brains work very differently, and how you take in information or how you process things could be slightly different. So when I'm going through things, I'm going to say, well, this is something that I do, but this might work for you if you're this sort of brained person, or left brain, right brain, or what type of personality you are. Some people are really into having lists and check boxes, and other people are much more about having visual representations of things. So it is really about how you process information and how, it's going to work for you. But what I didn't want this to be was a PowerPoint slide presentation. So there is no PowerPoint for tonight whatsoever. And for those of you welcome on the recording, you'll be pleased to know there will be no PowerPoint. This is literally an over the shoulder, me sharing my screen, sharing my core systems. And then I want to be able to leave sort of that 10-15 minutes at the end so that you can actually ask me questions. And yeah, we don't even need to fill the full hour if you've got what you need from this. So I'm very much, happy to have interaction from those of you who are listening on, please feel free to type in the chat, ask me your questions. And if it's appropriate, I'll answer. If not, I'll just hold it. And then when I get to that point, I'll come back and answer that question. But yes, I just felt in my core when I was putting this workshop together that I cannot bear like another ad out there or something that makes us feel less than. Like there is this secret miracle out there to how to save time, or how to get more done in less time, or all the variations of that, where as a mum or as a woman, you just feel completely like you are the one failing. Does anybody feel like that? That you just feel like it must just be me, I must be the one failing because everybody else seems to know these things that I don't know, but I just feel like a hot mess. I've got major mental overload. I, just feel completely like I'm chasing my tail most days. And I think there's a real part of recognizing that that is a lot of modern day living. And one thing that I suppose I get concerned about when I see stuff about, balance, we're going to achieve balance, work-life balance, is that, and for those of you who've sort of known my teaching for a while, you know that I don't believe in balance. I believe that, life is ebb and flow, it's seasons. And if you're in balance, it means nothing's growing and it means nothing's declining. So if you just want to kind of stay the same in life, then that's what you want to go for. But I don't know about you, like I want to be achieving things or going for goals, or, or having purposeful seasons where I've retreated and I'm not growing. So I think it is really important to just recognize where you are in your life right now, and not to impose society standards or this badge of busyness that everybody seems to wear nowadays. Like, again, when I talk to people and they're like, how are you? Oh, I'm so busy. Like, I just want to say, can you hear yourself? Like, can you hear what you're saying? Like, it's you're affirming busyness and chaos and, like as if you don't have control. And I get, life is busy. Everybody's busy. We all have things to do. I think we'd actually be quite worried if someone was like, yeah, I'm really bored. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, no one would say that. But in that process of being very British and, I'm so busy, it's just become this badge of honor. So it perpetuates the cycle of us feeling like we've got to be chasing our tails. We've got to have our diaries crammed. It's got to be go, 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 go all the time. And one of the things people will often say to me is, you're so busy. And that used to bug me until I realized that what they were trying to actually get at is that your life is very varied and full, and you balance lots of different things. And I suppose just to kind of share just a snippet about me is that I do run 3 different businesses. I do have ADHD, attention deficit disorder. So for me, focusing is a really can be quite a challenge at the best of times. So I have to have systems. Systems are my savior for keeping me on track. And, I don't say those things to impress you or make you feel sorry for me or whatever, but it's just to kind of set the scene on really for me, how it actually took a long time. It actually took until I was 39 years old for my ADHD to come to the light, because I've always created systems. And I believe that was a coping mechanism for me for my ADHD, because I didn't understand how everybody just seemed to kind of manage things. Like I needed to have processes and things to help me remember, help keep me on track. And it's so ironic because people, when I tell them I have ADHD, the first thing they say to me is, but you're so organized. Because typically an ADHD person is like chaos, hot mess, doesn't know what they're doing. And again, like it's a sliding scale. But for me, systems have been my savior. And so this is why I really feel qualified to share kind of what it is that I do day to day. I absolutely love the quote, "We don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems," by James Clear, from the amazing book, if you haven't read it, Atomic Habits. And what I love so much about that is that as moms, as women, we can just take the pressure off ourselves, because again, we're always beating up ourselves and shooting on ourselves. Oh, we should be doing this, or we should have this goal, we should be doing that, all the things we should be doing. But actually, it's not that we're lazy or that we're unmotivated to achieve our goals. It's actually because we don't have the systems in place to support that. If you were going to set out to run a marathon, you wouldn't just sort of turn up and run a marathon. You'd need to get the right footwear. You'd need to get the right training plan. You'd need to, get the right coaching. There would be all those things. But somehow we got dumped in adulthood. They didn't teach us at school really how to manage our time, because we had a bell going and people telling us what to do. And then we kind of, some of us went to uni and we sort of figured our way through that, or we started working and then we had the punching the clock 9 to 5 or 9 to however. But we've always had those parameters. And I think, again, since I've been self-employed for the last 10 years and running my own businesses, I've had to work out, okay, it's not so much about the hours that you keep and you do things. And this is where kind of I need, everyone's got different backgrounds listening to the recording or watching this. You might be sort of an entrepreneur, you might be full-time working, you might be retired, you might be at very different life stages. But sometimes it is really helpful to borrow the entrepreneurship mindset for this. Because actually, one of the things I work a lot with my coaching clients on, especially those who've recently become self-employed, is that it's not about putting in a day's work. It's about the productivity that you can gain from the work that you actually do. Case in point, how many of us fly through that to-do list just before we go on holiday? It's like you're a ninja. Like, you're like, why can't I work like this all the time? So it's actually thinking about, okay, creating those environments within our day-to-day and adjusting your mindset to be like, it's not about the hours I spend doing things. It's actually about the quality of the time. I think the biggest thing as a woman or as a mom that I want you to think about right now, and this is a bit of a practical exercise. So it'd be great if you do have a pen and paper or your phone to jot some notes down. And I always do this exercise with my clients where I say to them to really think about their life in terms of a big jar, like a lovely big glass, I'm going to be American, vase, a big vase. And in that vase, you are going to want to, if you had to sort of come along and think, right, I'm going to fill it up with lots of different sort of rocks and pebbles and sand and everything. If you were just to pour all the sand in first and then try to put the big rocks in, it would be really difficult because the sand's already there. So you're like trying to shove the rocks in, and then you're trying to shove the pebbles in and you're like, no, but it's already filled up with the sand. And sometimes it's just about actually going, right, well, I'm tip the sand out and I'm going to put the big rocks. So the big rocks are the important pillars in your life. And I'm sure for many, it's going to be things like their family. For me, a big rock is my health. Many people don't consider their health a rock because they think, oh, it must be my job and it must be my family and it must be those things that come before my health. But actually, for me, if I don't have my health, nothing else works. Nothing else works. And our calendars and our vase and how it's filled is as a result of our priorities. And that's sometimes a tough pill to swallow, because actually that's where you go, well, my calendar dictates my life. And so what am I prioritizing in my life? So for me, those big rocks are really thinking about those core values. So I just want to be quiet for a moment and just ask you to think about 3, 4, maximum sort of 5 big rocks in your life that are super, like, they are you, they define you, they define your reason for living. So once you've thought about those sort of 3 to 5 core blocks of your life, I want you to then think about the little pebbles that fit around it. So those other things that are important to you, they're not exactly big rocks, but they are there. They are things that you need to do. Maybe it's volunteering work, or school PTA, or helping a friend in need, whatever it is. Think about those small little rocks. And because little pebbles can squeeze into places around the rocks, you could actually end up having quite a lot of those. So you might want to have a look at that list after the call. And then how you can fill that jar up then is the sand. Like, that's how you can get it all in there, because you can sprinkle the sand and the sand will slot in and find its way around the big rocks and little pebbles. But it will only find the space subject to the big rocks and then the little rocks. And that's why it's really important to think, before we even start on the systems, is actually getting really clear in your minds what is important to you. And as I said, this is not going to be me telling you how you can squeeze more into your day. Like, our diaries are already way too overloaded. If you think away the way that our ancestors lived, they never had to cope with the amount of decisions and information and stimulation and light and technology. At this point of the evening, they wouldn't be sitting on a Zoom meeting. They would be in bed sleeping, because there would be no natural light. And as the fire, went out, they would naturally go to sleep and then wake up with the sunrise. But as a human species, we've hacked this world, and as a result, we've got sicker, more depressed, just as a result. So this is where we have to sort of go back to basics and think, actually, if I keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, like, that's just the definition of insanity. So what I really want you to get from today is 2 things. It's either permission to say no. It's very hard, but just a reminder, no is a full sentence. I know as women, we often feel like we've then got to insert justification after the word no, but no is a full sentence. And the other thing that systems allows us and helps us to do is it allows us to actually see where we are truly overloaded. And that's what I'm going to show you with my calendar. So actually, then I can see visually there's too much. And I don't know if any of you saw it recently, but it was really, really funny, because it actually went viral and it made the news. But this woman did this funny TikTok. I actually need to find the video, where her husband was a bit like, why are you always so stressed? Like, chill kind of thing. And she's like, do you even comprehend all the things that I think about on a daily basis? And that's the exhausting part, is that it's all held up here. And yes, it might be written down in some places, but I think the challenge as women is that we do hold a lot in our brains, and that's exhausting, because how good does it feel when you dump it out into paper and you actually even feel physically like, lighter. And she made this list, a spreadsheet basically of all the things she thinks, and down to like cleaning out the dryer filter, cleaning out the fridge, like how many times she has to do that, like all the things that pertain to their life. And the spreadsheet she created has gone viral. And as I say, it's been picked up by news channels about the mental load of women. And I think it's made a lot of men, you know, particularly look at it and go, oh, okay, I see now. There's a lot of things that people don't think about that actually falls on a woman. So I do want to recognize that there is so much that we're dealing with. So let's get our systems in place to actually help support that. Just quickly, I'm going to whip out the old school. You've heard this time and time again before, the 3Ds. You've heard it in some way, shape, or form. Delegate, do it now, or delete. You probably at some point in your life sat on some time management workshop at work or something where they've gone through this and you've gone, oh, that's a great idea. And actually, does anybody remember the quadrant that they put up where they talk about sort of like urgent, non-urgent, and then like urgent, and then non-essential, not urgent, and then you kind of can categorize and stuff. I mean, there's so many different systems out there, but I just absolutely love the delete. Like, I'm just not going to reply to that WhatsApp message. And I'm not talking about if someone messages me directly to ask me a question, but also on that note, if somebody does WhatsApp you or send you a message, that is a request for your attention. That is not their right to get it at that point and at that time. And if you find yourself constantly replying to WhatsApp, email, whatever, insert whatever platform here, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Like, you have nothing to apologize for. The fact that I opened my WhatsApp this morning and I had like 15 WhatsApp messages, and some of them were like multiple messages on chains and stuff. And it's like, that's just too much for the human brain to deal with first thing in the morning. I mean, I don't look at my WhatsApp till at least 7:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, but still. And I just think we should not have to apologize for the fact that it takes us 2 days. If you think about the old school snail mail, how long that would take till someone got a reply. It's just also, it doesn't mean that we have to do it instantly. So if there's something that crops up on the WhatsApp group, in a friendship group, like, you don't have to always be the one that puts your hand up to say, I'll do it. And I think sometimes this is a hard one. Sometimes we say yes to a lot of things because it keeps us busy and it keeps us feeling worthy. And sometimes we need to maybe go to therapy for that and really work out like what it is about that we keep putting everybody else before us. But this isn't a therapy session. The other thing is to delegate. So when I became an entrepreneur, this became really easy for me. And I appreciate if you are maybe not running your own business and you don't necessarily have essentially like how much you earn for your time. So especially when you're in a salaried role, you go in, you do your hours, you get paid a salary. You don't really think about like how long it's taking you to do things. Whereas if I do something for a client and I can charge, or I can do a coaching session and can charge X amount of money for a session, it makes me think twice about cleaning my house for 5 hours when what I can earn in my business for 5 hours work is substantially more. So when I say, oh, I have a cleaner, or I outsource things around the house where I know, I mean, don't get me wrong, if you love cleaning your house and that's your absolute de-stressor and you absolutely love it. But when I'm looking at women's time and they trying to do everything, they're working full time, they're running a side hustle, they are cleaning their house, they're doing all the lion's share of the kids' work, everything. It's like, it's just impossible. And that's where you do have to delegate, because the women that say they can do it all, I'm not going to say they're lying, but they definitely have help. And I think a lot of the big sort of corporate women are coming out and saying, you know, actually, I do have a lot of help. I have a housekeeper, I have meals delivered, all these kind of things. Yeah, we don't see that necessarily. So we equate, oh, we must be like kicking ass in the boardroom, putting home cooked meals on the table every night. Like, it's just not physically possible. And I know as women, often and as working moms, we'll, you know, work as if, you know, expected to work as if we don't have kids and raise kids as if we don't have jobs. So it's just being very mindful of that. And the other thing is the do now philosophy. Again, I see it a bit, like I see it now, especially like my husband and I are very do it now people. So if something breaks in the house, Like my husband's off to B&Q or off to Wix or Screwfix to go and get, like we had our sink in our ensuite break the other week. And like it was his mission to get it fixed, because you know what it's like, if you don't get it done now, or you don't clean that scrape up off the wall where you've gone past with your bag, then suddenly you're just like less likely to care, and you scrape it again, and then suddenly the wall's all covered in marks, and then you need to get it painted, and then it's a mission and no one can find a decorator. But if you just took a little bit of Cif and a bit of cloth and you just got it off straight away, or when the light bulb went, you changed it, or the watch battery went and you did it, or the install on your phone cropped up and you just did it. Like those little 1-2 minute jobs are lifesavers. And it stops us like holding it in our brain and thinking, oh, I must do that. I must do that, because it's all I must do that cause us the most stress and the build up. So there is a lot that we can get done with just that do now philosophy. So let's get on to the 3 core systems that I want to teach you tonight. And again, some of this you may know, and I also don't want you to be like, right now I have to like do all of Wendy's systems. Actually, I just want you to take what you need to from this. I might have just said one tiny little nugget that you're like, actually, that's the thing that I needed to hear. And that was absolutely worth my time to come on and hear that one little thing, or that gave me permission to, et cetera, et cetera. But hopefully I can just give you, because I don't know about you, I love like the inspiration of looking at other people's things and being like, I could see how that could work for me. Yeah, that's not going to work for me. So really, I just want you to sort of take this with a pinch of salt in terms of like what it's going to help you with. So first up, and I know you probably would have heard me speaking about this before, I just want to really start with my personal weekly review system. So this is my how I power up every week. So just to kind of run through this, because I have got like a blog on this, podcast episodes, I do speak about this in my emails and my social media, but this is my 4-step process every week. And this is really what kind of, I mean, I do this now automatically in my brain without needing a sheet. But this is what I will send out to you in the post workshop recording, like, so you can download your own little template of it, but just what I'm sharing on the screen there. And what I do is I look at 4 different elements to my week, and this can be as quick as 5 minutes, but I would encourage you, if you can, and you've got the availability to do 10, 15 minutes, even half an hour, the more you've got, the better. But the key thing with this is that which gets scheduled gets done. So the key thing is actually having this in your diary as an appointment to do each week, because even if you do that, like most of us do, if an alert pops up, oh, I'll do that later, at least it's that little reminder to yourself that actually, if you're canceling out that notification and you're not making the time to actually have that weekly meeting with yourself to really work out your priorities, where you need to schedule your time, then you can start to see really quickly how and why things feel out of control, because you're not actually prioritizing you. And it's not even you as in chocolates and bubble baths and bath salts, it's actually you in terms of managing your life. So the first thing I'd encourage you to do with your PWR is to celebrate yourself. So think about like what you've actually achieved in the past week. I actually put a podcast for somebody live today. I couldn't believe that I figured out how to do it, even though I have my own podcast, but I delegate somebody to do that. But I was helping a friend, and yeah, I couldn't believe I did that. So that's definitely going on my celebration like this week. As moms, as women, we often don't recognize all the small little achievements. So it could be you want to celebrate cooking a great dinner this week, or, you know, for me, I hosted a really good Girl Guide session this week that I was really proud of, and my little Girl Guide's got loads of badges and things. So whatever it is, think about what you can celebrate, because there is always something to celebrate and be grateful for. Then if you're doing this for the first time, this is obviously going to build on the following week, but reflect on your previous week. So thinking about, well, what were my 3 main goals for the week? Because again, I think as women, often we have so many priorities, and actually our brains, a confused mind does nothing. Like your brain just doesn't know how to deal with all the things. And that's why I always have my 3 MIAs every day, my 3 most important actions. So for me today, that was to do the podcast launch, deliver a workshop at lunchtime for my Thriving Biz Bootcamp, and then deliver this workshop this evening. Those were my 3 core priorities for today. yes, I had a couple of periphery things, like I was on dinner duty tonight in the household, and I wanted to get a workout class in today. So that was kind of like 4 and 5 on the list. But those 3 things were like the number one, like most important actions today. So I could build my week around that. It's also just having awareness. If you're looking back and reflecting on what your 3 most, because again, there's going to be your daily MIAs, but overarchingly, there are those weekly goals. And it could be that you have a big go live at work, or you have something happening, or you've got a holiday, or whatever it is. But what are your 3 main goals? Even if that goal is to chill out because you are on holiday, like reflect on that. And if you didn't hit the goal, it's thinking about, okay, why? It's just having that awareness of it, not chastising yourself. Then the next thing I do, and this task is so important because this will inform what I'm going to show you in my calendar, is I really want you to brain dump it all out. So again, our minds are holding so much that the actual science around getting it out of our heads onto paper is incredibly, incredibly powerful. Did anyone remember learning mind mapping at school? Like, any which way that you find, it could be that you're actually bullets and lists or whatever it is, but either way, it needs to be brain dumped out, because by doing that, you actually free up your headspace to actually think of solutions. Whereas if your brain is so busy holding everything. So what I do is I brain dump all my tasks, my projects for the week, work, personal, family, birthdays, meals, food shops, take it into account. Do you have your period? Do you have a medical treatment? Is something happening? Take those things into account. As women, men, they literally have one mood pretty much. Women, we have all these hormones, so we're like this all month long, like these poor men, actually, to be fair. But they don't have to factor in whether or not they're going to feel like doing something, or whether they're going to be eating the contents of the fridge, because whatever it is. So think about what is realistic and achievable for you. And actually, this is where your weeks may need to adjust. My little top tip on this is, if you can do this with your partner, not to the full extent, but if you can, like my husband and I sit down and we'll be like, right, what's happening this week? What nights you're out playing football? Right, who's doing dinner what night? Like, we have a little family meeting, and with my mom, because she lives with us too, and we're like, right, who's doing dinner on what night? Cool. And we've got like a little board, a little like I bought it for $9.99 on Amazon on the fridge, and everyone's got their week, and they can put all their stuff on there, and then we can just clear that off every week. But also, like, dinner, the time we're eating, everything goes on there. Because I found, like, and I imagine this is how people with more than one child feel, like I was just constantly updating people as to what we were doing, and it was like, why must I hold all this information in my head? Like, it's on the fridge. If it's not on the fridge, it doesn't exist. So whatever your version of it's on the fridge needs to be, think about that. And then the final thing is to get clarity and commit. So thinking about the week coming up, what you've got, how things are going to work, what are your core goals for the week, and then actually also setting yourself like what you're going to do to celebrate when you hit your goals. Because I think, again, and it doesn't have to be buying yourself something, spending money. It could be, going for a nice walk, or like, I'm really excited tomorrow because now that it's light and the clocks have gone back, my daughter's gymnastics class tomorrow night between 5 and 6, whereas for the last 2 months, I've been sitting in the freezing cold dark, waiting in the car, having to turn it on every 5 minutes to keep the car warm, because you can't go inside and it's too far for me to drive home. And I realized the other day, it's like 5 minutes from the beach. So guess where I'm going tomorrow when I drop her off? I'm going straight to the beach to treat myself to a lovely fresh walk. And that is my little reward for achieving some big goals this week. So it doesn't have to be a thing. It can just be what is going to light you up and bring you joy. So why that's important for me to share in terms of how I do that weekly system, and you may have something that you already do, but this might be the first time that you're thinking about planning your week out with work and kid stuff, like actually factoring in all the different elements that go with being a working mom, a parent, just a very busy woman. And what I then do is I translate that over to my Google Calendar. So again, you might be on, a Microsoft calendar, or it doesn't matter. Like, you can actually do this in iPhone. I imagine if you've got Android as well, you can do it. Like, that's the thing nowadays with systems, everybody like has a version of the same thing. So you don't need to worry that that's, you know, not going to be available. So I'm just going to share my calendar with you right now, and like being literally very vulnerable and sharing exactly what it says this week. So what I want to draw your attention to over here in my calendar is actually the fact that I've set up different calendars that are color coordinated. So again, this is something that when I actually just explain to people how I do it, they're like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And I was like, I thought everyone does it like this. So it's always the things that you think are the most silly, which actually are the most helpful. Why I color coordinate my calendar, and how you can do this in Google, is just simply hovering over your calendar here and actually adding on an extra calendar. So you can actually go up here into my settings and then go into your calendar, and you can add the different calendars. But then if you need to change anything, just go into settings here, and then you can change the names of things. I number them so that they categorize down, and then you can also make them different colors. Another thing that you should be mindful of is that if you want to create a calendar that you can share with other people. So again, I think a lot of people are already doing this, but if you're not, it's really helpful, I think, to have like a family calendar that, say, you and your partner or you and your kids or whoever have access to. So we actually have one on our iPhone, but it's all synced up on my phone, but it's like the Griffith social diary. So when we've got plans and stuff, it actually goes in there. The reason I don't have it linked to my Google Calendar is because what I found is when I have stuff in there, it overwrites and makes me busy in my work calendar. And then some people are like, you're not available. I'm like, I am, but it's actually just because it's somebody's birthday or something. So that's why I've got them separated. But what I do actually do is put my personal stuff in there. So and my personal calendar is private. So while you guys can see everything, I've got personal appointments, like when I'm, you know, as I said to you, I'm picking up my daughter tomorrow, I'm taking her to gymnastics, she has swimming tonight, I'm on this workshop this evening. But what I love to do in terms of color coordinating, because I am a very visual person, is from this, I like to see, right, where am I not spending enough time? Coming back to the rocks. Now, hopefully this is all going to start to make sense as I layer it up for you. If you come back to the rocks and what's important to you, if I'm saying one of my rocks is my health, yet in my weekly calendar, there is no green for exercise or for meal prep or, you know, time working on my health and well-being, then that doesn't show that health is my priority. Now, can I just caveat that quickly to say that there will sometimes be days where, like, I really wanted to get to gym today, but I had a lot that I needed to do today. So I was like, cut yourself some slack. You went to gym yesterday, you're going tomorrow, it's all good. So, and it could be that you go a few days without doing any movement in your life. And I'm just using this as an example. Like, it's just an easy one because it's one that's a lot of priority to the people that I associate with. But it's thinking about, okay, so where am I spending my time? And this is also very helpful if you are juggling a job, a side hustle, exercise, kids. Like, you can start to see very visually, like if your diary is just color coordinated, full of kids stuff, you can see very quickly there why you're so stressed, like, because there's no time in there for actually doing work or, you know, your business or, and so for me, it's just, I like to see a real mixture of colors. So you might come on here and go, whoa, like, what is this? There's like so much, but actually for me, that represents a really great week. But then there might be some weeks where a certain color, like because I'm trying to hit a deadline or launch something, is going to take more precedence. But yeah, it is very important. And also you'll notice in and around my calendar, what I don't do with my calendar is have it as a tasks list. So call Josie, do that. I'm going to show you where that lives. Okay. What my calendar is basically time blocking my life. So it's me allocating, and I appreciate being my own boss. I have a bit more flexibility with this, but it is about being very intentional. So for example, if you are working full-time or part-time, obviously the days that you're working, you're going to block out those times that you're working with your work color. because that's what you're committed to doing. But the problem is when our calendars become this like pinging of to-do lists all the time, which stress us out. What I like to do, and what I'm going to show you next in my systems, is I like to group things into categories. So for example, if I have a lot of life admin, like rather than my calendar being filled up with all these tiny little jobs about life admin, again, your system might work differently. You might have a paper diary and you've got an admin paper page, and you write, every time you think of something, you write that task down on that list, whether that's electronic or paper, and that goes on the admin list. When you come to your admin time block in your diary, you go to your admin list and you start working down by priority. That has been the biggest game changer, because that is where I start to control my time and where I start to control how much time I'm spending on things. For example, I volunteer, I've said, with Girl Guides. There is a lot of work I need to do as a leader, but I have set myself a certain amount of time that I can give to Girl Guides every week. If the work I need to do cannot get done in that block of time, it's going to have to push. I'm going to have to prioritize what I need to do. And it sometimes means that, you know, my district leader is like, oh, Wendy, you still haven't sent that. I'm like, I'm just a volunteer. I'll get to it when I can. Like, it's just about knowing, because I know that when I say yes to something, I'm saying no to something else. So if you can see that you, by setting the time blocks in your diary and setting those blocks and those calendars around the big rocks and then the smaller rocks, you can start to see, actually, I don't have the time. This is why I'm stressed. You can even sit with your partner and show them and work through it and be like, right, what can we do about this? Because as you can see, there's just physically no breathing room. So how I track the different aspects of my life. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can do this, okay? I have two kind of mini systems for this. The first one I have, and again, this is just going to depend on how your brain works, is I use a project management tool. Now, these have become quite trendy in the last few years, not just for business people, but for moms juggling busy lives, people juggling busy lives. You may or may not have heard of things like Asana, Trello. They're all project management tools where you can actually put in all your tasks. You can assign dates, due dates, but it's like it's basically a very fancy spreadsheet, not hard fancy, but just a nice visual representation. And it's just a great way to actually, once you've brain dumped, put things in there under the different lists that I'll show you in a sec, so that when it comes to your time block in your diary, in your Google Calendar or whatever calendar you're using, you're like, right now I can refer to that. So when, for example, in my calendar, you can see I've got blocks for client work. I'm now going to move over to my project management tool. I use a system called ClickUp. Now, you don't have to use what I use. This is why I've mentioned there's Asana, Trello. They all work in a very similar way. But if I want to go into my workspace over here, where I've got my different clients that I'm managing at the moment, I'm going to be able to see a really good overview of what's needed and what's going on, what's due, what hasn't been assigned, so that I'm just like, I'm capturing everything. And again, this is the brain dumping exercise. I can see what's overdue, can see what's in progress. The cool thing about this is that you can put it in a calendar view. Now, this is the same for all these type of project management apps. Or you can put it in a board view so you can see what you've got to do, what needs to move into progress. When it comes to personal life, I've got personal to-dos and business to-dos. This is actually even locked, so it's a private space, because I have a couple of contractors I work with, so they'll have access to my other folders. But here is where, for example, I've got my personal to-do that I need to look at my pensions and consolidate my policies. I've got a couple of business to-dos on there. So anything that I want to do will go on there. I do actually have to check my NI contributions, because I heard something on the One Show tonight about that needing to be done before July. So I can put that in there and save that. If that is freaking you out and that seems ridiculously high tech, it's so funny that whenever people set up a project management tool, and the nice thing as well is you can have this as an app on your phone, so you don't have to like do a system on desktop. I like working with both. So I need something that's got both an app that I can click off things on my phone, but also I can come to the desktop and type if I want to. But if this seems like, whoa, like I don't know how I'm going to do this, but what this is really good for is if you are like me, you manage multiple streams. So I have 3 different businesses and I do volunteering and I'm a mom and I have a very busy social life. So it's really helpful for me to see all these different things in different spaces, to see it all consolidated, but then also to see, and also it gives me a place. So I'm not like writing notes on my phone and writing sticky notes and everything. Don't get me wrong, I actually still do a lot of that because I really love putting pen to paper. Case in point, my notes for tonight are here on a big mind map. But when it comes to then assigning things, you know, and especially if you want to add family members or invite people to your project management tool, which you can do here. What's really cool about that is that, you know, you could have a joint house to-do list with your partner of things that need to be done. So you can add things to the list and then assign it to them. It's basically the modern day version of like putting a note on the fridge saying, do this, do that. But it, again, it's just going to be how your brain works. Another thing that might work better for you that you might like is a system that we have. It's so this ClickUp, Asana, Trello, these project management tools. I've come to know about them and use them as a result of having my own business. Okay. But if that's not your jam, something like Microsoft To Do, which again is a free tool. All these are free, by the way. Nothing I'm teaching you tonight you have to pay for. Everything is freely available. If you come on to Microsoft To Do, what I love is this is actually the first time I'm seeing this in a desktop view, because I just basically have it on my phone. But I thought this is not going to be very easy for you to see on the phone because you can't always see the screen. But what I predominantly use this for is actually tracking personal stuff and like list sharing. So you're going to laugh. Like look here on the left hand side here, we have a joint folder. You see where there's like multiple people here? That's my husband. He's on the list. So when we haven't written Christmas cards, like you can see, we decided not to write Christmas cards to those people because these were all the ones that got completed in the list. Our to-dos, oh, now it's really going to be, these are all like house tasks. I mean, look at that. We are way past the deadline on my husband that was assigned to him of checking the smoke detectors in the house. So again, setting up appointments for these things. I know, like I'm seeing you guys smiling and you might think, oh my goodness, you might actually already have this in place. You might have reminders in your phone. But again, the mental load of thinking like, check the fire extinguishers, check the smoke detectors, all their things. If you can just get it into this, you never have to carry it in your brain again. You might need to put yourself on the reminder though, in case your husband doesn't do it. But you know, like it's silly. You can have a list for like programs to watch on Netflix. You know, when people say, oh, that's a good thing. That's a good, put it on the list. So when you're like, what should we watch? Oh, hold on my list. The other thing, like here, I've got a Norfolk places to try. So these are all these, can you tell we love food? All these restaurants that I've been recommended that me and my husband want to try. Another thing is like, we've got different things for like Jessie, we've got like gift ideas. So this is actually quite well used at the moment because she's just had obviously birthday and Christmas. But when I was doing her birthday party and I had like, right, these are all the people I have to invite. And then I could like literally tick it off as I went. Similarly, gift ideas when it's Christmas or Mother's Day, as you can see, that list is shared with my husband. Like I've got my weekend packing list. If I go away for a weekend, I've got a longer holiday packing list. All these things that, again, you might think, oh my goodness, we even have a list here for our gardener so that if the gardener arrives when I'm not around, my husband knows what to tell him to do because it's on the freaking list. And now you guys are like, she is a psycho. Are you enjoying this? Is this giving you a little insight into my brain? Is this helping? Okay. So yeah, it just, again, Microsoft To Do, the biggest one for me on here that I love is the groceries. because how many times will somebody pop to the shop and then they forget something and they're like, oh, because I didn't have a piece of paper, or you didn't know. So when husband and I are cooking, because we all cook very equally in our household, if something runs out, one of us, I'm like, oh, do you have your phone there? And then he'll literally pop it on. So you can actually see what we need on our grocery list. We've just had our shop delivered this week. So you can see we need dog toothpaste. Yes, that is a thing. Frozen broccoli for the deep freeze, peas, macaroni pasta, because my daughter loves it. So again, it's just so easy for us. So you can add, I don't know, I'm just going to make one up here, cheese. You can even then set it on a specific calendar. You can put an alert on it. You can put it as a repeat on a weekly reminder. So again, this is just another tool. There are so many tools like this out there that you can use. This is just what I personally have loved using because it's just easy and I can click it. And what's really cool is that if you do set things up with dates in the system, then what you'll be able to do is actually come onto like a summary day and be able to see like what you've actually got to do that day. I mean, our brains probably work a little bit like this with our inboxes, but it's that same concept. And then also to see like what's on the important list. As you can see, my watch battery, which has been dead for ages, but also the smoke detectors, which I'm now going to absolutely change the deadline on that. But to be fair, I did actually check them recently because they did go off. So I know that they are working because I over smoked the kitchen. So ding. Oh, isn't that satisfying to hear that little ding? Okay, so those are just a couple of like the systems in terms of what I wanted to teach you in terms of thinking about the big rocks, little rocks, thinking about, okay, what are the things that are important to me? Thinking about, okay, in terms of those big rocks, what are the time blocks? Like the time blocks are the calendars. It's thinking about, right, what are the key things for me? That would be my 3 different businesses, my mum's stuff, my social diary, because that's important to me, having that balance. Thinking about my, and I even have like volunteering, holiday, they're all different calendars. My gym, my workout basically is, and then for me, that is very much about having those blocks in my diary according to what my schedule is on the predominance of a week. Because like, I know sometimes weeks shift for people. And like last week, I was away in Portugal for a few days, just going to slip that in there. So for me, it was like all crammed into the start of the week, and that's fine. Like there wasn't any margin in that because I was having 2 days, 3 days in the sunshine. So don't feel sorry for me. But it was that whole thing of like, okay, but what I love so much about when I can look at my calendar that way is I can then start to drag and drop things and be like, actually, that block's going to have to shift into there because I've got now to go and do another celebration assembly at school. For goodness sake, how many freaking celebration assemblies do they need to do, or a reading cafe or a maths cafe or something that I need to fit in, and then I'll just need to drag and drop my blocks around. But at least in my heart of hearts and my mind, I know I've got the block, I've got the time allocated in my diary. Therefore, when it comes to the actual, now what do I need to do, I can go to either, if you're doing paper, the list of like all the admin tasks, or going to your project management tool, or going to your to-do list, however you want to set it up, and then picking off in that time block what it is that I need to look at. So that is the systems. But I want to move on to some questions, if there are some questions, because I think sometimes in the questions, there might be other things that I can share with you. Or have I just completely melted your brain? Brains. What is left of your brain cells for the day? As I say, I will send out links for all these tools that I've spoken through tonight, but it's not so much about the physical tools, but it's about the concepts of the tools and just getting you to think differently in terms of all the small little granular tasks, and think about planning your calendar and your most important actions for the week around those priorities to you. Because I think as moms, where we get frustrated, where we get burned out, where we get overwhelmed is when we feel like everybody else's priorities is taking precedence. But this is where we can very visually see our priorities in action. So Lisa's saying here, I'm not sure I have questions, but I've definitely had light bulbs. I use Trello, but it needs some reorganizing. I used to do for work, but didn't think about it for home. And that's brilliant. And I think that's what I was saying to you now, being an entrepreneur, it kind of gives me an advantage in planning my time because it's made me think very differently. And I think as well, just on that note, just to add to that section I was teaching on, whether or not you're an entrepreneur, but I'm just thinking like, if you were to think about your life and your time in a day in terms of an hourly rate. So like workout, and if maybe the guide of that is like your job, work out for 40 hours a week, say, I'm just aggregating here, what you earn per hour. And then it's actually thinking about, okay, so if I can get someone to do something for me that's going to be less than that, then that's worth delegating. Or if I'm going to say yes to doing that volunteer, and I know it's not always as black and white as that, but it just gets you to think, is this the best way to be using my time? And if I am overloaded, because you are physically overloaded, you can see it visually, is it really smart for me to be putting my hand up to run the bake sale at school or whatever the equivalent is, or organize their girly night out or whatever it is? So yeah, it's so funny you say you used to do for work, because I've only ever used it for personal. And but what I would maybe suggest is, if you've got Trello, just rather add your personal like stuff to just keep it all in one place. Like the only reason I have those two systems is because, yeah, you like the sound of completing things. Yeah, me too. Ding! Like little dopamine rush. But yeah, it's thinking about, the only reason I've got that is because it was actually, my husband and I set that up years ago before I even knew what a project management tool was. And it's only now that I have a project management tool for my business stuff that I've started incorporating some of my personal things over to that. But I still like having that separation, but you don't have to, you can merge it all in one place. On that note about reorganizing, I'm going to say it again and again, that which gets scheduled gets done. So as part of your PWR, your weekly review, sometimes we've got to spend that 2-hour block of time getting it all organized. And actually you'll find once you start it, you'll be like, oh, this is so good. And it will literally just flow out of you, and you'll just feel so super, super duper organized in it. And it will really help you be on top of things moving forward. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of refinement and tweaking. And then you'll be like, okay, that's because, again, like, this is what I'm saying. These are my systems. I'm happy to show you them, but you might be like, that's not going to work for my brain. Or you might be like, oh, I'm going to take that and then work it for myself, like you've done, Lisa. So thank you for sharing. So yeah, putting things into different categories. Do you mean in terms of the calendar? Or even on Trello, you can do it. I mean, I know my calendar is a bit ridiculous as well, but I think for me, the way I learned that trick was when I was working full time and looking to grow my Arbonne business. And I remember somebody saying to me, like, you've got to have your Arbonne time scheduled, otherwise it's never going to be a priority. And actually, if you can put your Arbonne time, I've always had my Arbonne time in green, then you'll be able to see very visually where you're doing that income producing activity. And so that's where I got it from. And I've just applied that principle across all other avenues of my life. And that's really helped me and gone, okay, do I have a good mix of things? Yeah, you say my brain dump is one big list as opposed to home, business, studying category. Yeah, when you do your brain dump, just get it all out of there. Just like vomit it down on paper. It doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to get out of your brain. Another place that I'm really guilty for storing up stuff, and I have to do a cull every now and again, is the notes on my phone. I'm a bad one for like So I did an exercise the other week where I went and like created folders and put notes into different folders, and I actually felt clean. I actually felt like my soul was refreshed from doing that. So I think sometimes it's just spending the time doing these things that we just go like, oh, like that just makes me feel so, because the whole thing is I'm not going to sit here and tell you that suddenly, I'm going to give you an extra 10 hours a week back in your life. Like, but hopefully what I've been able to say is like, there is a way that we can time block and see, and then through working our diary, we can create those pockets of time for ourselves, or at least to prioritize some of the things that are important to us, such as exercise or whatever it is, so that you don't feel like everybody else is running your diary. It's like, yeah, you can be busy, but you're in control of the busy, not everybody else. And that's why when people say to me, oh, you're so busy, and I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, yeah, I like to be busy, but I'm very intentional with what I'm being busy with. So Lisa's just saying that I'm also going to schedule when I pick up my phone to respond to messages, as sometimes I feel at the mercy of it. Oh, yes. Thank you for sharing that. You can teach the next workshop, because that tip is absolute gold. And it's true. Like, I don't have any notifications enabled on my phone. So it's only when I click into something like WhatsApp or Messenger or my email that I will then see what's there. So I have times of the day where I check my phone, and you can actually look in your settings how many times a day you pick up your phone. So I'd like challenge myself. I'm gonna have like, because I did that, it's gonna register a couple of pickups. But I have a thing about, if I can keep my phone pickups to less than, I know this sounds crazy, 10 times a day, I'm doing well. And then you can make it a game and you're like 8 times, 6 times, get it down. Can you imagine if we lived in a world where, because you could obviously in your phone set emergency numbers. So you know that it can override silent, because my phone's always on silent. So if my husband's trying to call me, it will override it if it's an emergency, or if the school's trying to call. So absolutely. And yeah, people can check their phone up to every 6 minutes on average. And the other thing that's scary for me, and this is where I've had to learn to do this again, coming back to the ADHD and the systems, I had to learn that every time I get distracted, which is a lot, it takes 20 minutes for a normal person, not even a neurodiverse person like me, to then refocus. So can you imagine if I did have those notifications enabled and was completely like getting distracted all the time with notifications? Like I literally could not physically cope. It would actually make me so stressed. I'd have a nervous breakdown. So Moira is sharing, since retiring from busy, vibrant, organized, scheduled work life, yes, Moira was a head teacher, so she was an extremely busy woman and also very social. The temptation has been to throw all of that out and be spontaneous. And do you know what, Moira? I get that. When I went self-employed, I was like, threw everything out the window. And then after like 2 months, I really started to feel not right in myself. And I was like, no, we need routines. I need structure. But I'm a scheduler. I pack in loads, but I need to find a balance of activities. All lists are there, but not in one place. So going to regroup and balance my time better. Time to introduce a new tool. So yeah, and I think, Moira, for you, something like Microsoft To Do, which is a free app, it's easy, you can pop it on your phone, like that's great. For me, I understand being a business owner, I've got to have a calendar and I've got to have all these different things, but actually for you, you might have your iPhone calendar, I'm assuming, and then, your app, and you can just keep it all in one place. But you might want to do it on paper, but it doesn't matter what the system is, but it's just thinking about what is your system. And I think from what people are saying, like having it all in one place is really, really helpful. And to just make that time to so while I always recommend a weekly review, I think definitely having a little bit more of a longer monthly scheduling time to do a deeper brain dump and then reflect. Like now, March, I'm coming up to the end of Q1. So I'll be thinking, right, what were my Q1 goals? What did I achieve against them? What's still outstanding? Actually, is that still even a priority? Does that need to shift? What's going to move in and out? And so Moira was saying that she's got her monthly, like her monthly check-in in place, but she needs to look at her weekly too. So yeah, I think that's the thing. I think really and truly what I hope you've got from tonight is not that you're not going to suddenly be busy, because that's just not realistic in the day and age that we live in. Like, I'm not going to make you false promises, but what I hope I've been able to do is really get you thinking about, no, I can actually be in control of this. And also things are going to crop up where you're not in control. But on that, just to finish off, like, and I don't want this to like end on a morbid note, but think about, like, I just think about when my dad died a couple of years ago, coming up for 3 years ago, actually. And we've all had that awful moment where something like that's happened, where the world has just shifted on its axis for us. Like, life will never be the same again. And isn't it incredible when those situations happen in life, where it just gets you to like look at your life and what you're doing? And actually, I remember like just messaging a couple of people like that I work with and being like, this has happened. And they were just like, say no more. It's all dealt with. Like, everything just got done. The priorities, like, I still actually did a bit of work because it really helped distract me, but everything that needed to be done got done. Stuff that wasn't important fell away. And whenever things like that happen, I always think, oh, I just wish I could like remember this feeling of like, what's most important. Am I making sense? And I think what I was trying to do with that story was kind of capture the big rocks thing. It's like, actually think about, what are my big rocks? Because if you are burning yourself to a crisp because you are so stressed and so busy all the time, that you are slowly but surely building up inflammation in your body, which is going to wreak autoimmune disease, potentially cancer, firing up the cancer cells in your body, whatever it is down the line, like, is that worth it? Obviously it's not. So how do we structure our lives to make sure that our priorities are intended? And I think that's really what I just want to teach people, is intentional living. I'm not as a health coach teaching people anything that they don't already know, or somebody probably hasn't told them before, but hopefully just being able to reframe it in a way that's like, yeah, I get it, because I have these challenges too, and this is what's helped me. So yeah, just to end off tonight, I will be sending out an email tomorrow, just obviously with the recording of this, sharing those systems for you. And then if you are not already a part of the Thriving Mom Club, because I know many of the members sort of get this as a free thing, then perhaps that's something that you might would like to consider. And there will be an offer, a little special offer there for you as part of making the commitments be on this workshop. So yeah, I'm going to end it there so that we can all go and enjoy our evenings. I am deep into Yellowstone and Netflix right now, so I'm very excited to go and watch that right now. Anyone else watching that? No? You heard about it though, Kevin Costner. Oh, he's so sexy. Anyway, thank you so much for giving me your attention and your time. And I hope that has really helped you and inspired you tonight. And if you've got any questions or you want to run through anything with me and you're like, oh, Wendy, can you just drop me an email, wendy@wendygriffith.co.uk. Those of you who've got my WhatsApp me. I'm always here to help. And if you want to troubleshoot anything or brainstorm something that's going to work for you, let me know. Okay. Lots of love, everyone. Have a brilliant evening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.